History is written by the victors. And this simple fact just points to a truth in life that a lot of the history that we see and study that gets recounted to us and told to us is often biased. It's favored and skewed to lift the people writing it up and the people that they're representing into a favorable position, a favorable light, and the people that they conquered or went against or attacked them into a more negative light as being a lesser than people that deserved what happened to them in the effects. And it's true throughout all history. I mean, you just look at American history, you never hear much about the indigenous people and their perspective of what happened when we came across here. It's not taught in the classrooms. You know, you hear a few little stories here and there of mistreatments, whatever, but it was favorable for them, especially from an evangelical Christian point of view of we gave them God. We took them from their barbarous ways and just they were savages out in the wilderness, barely clothed and worshiping all sorts of earth, wind, and fire gods, as was taught to us through a lot of our school, and that we gave them culture and structure and modernized them. We never listened about what they actually went through. And that's just a point. You go throughout all the history and all the cultures that are represented through the history books, you'll see a lot of this. You know, the Roman Empire, they're attacking barbarians that were uncivilized and uncouth in everything they did. But the simple fact of the matter is that the Romans recounted this, recorded it in their own thing. It's what we picked up as the historical context. Later, after centuries, we kind of studied some of these barbarous people and understand that they did have societies and civilized ways of living, and that the Roman interaction with them was just through battles, and everyone's going to seem kind of barbarous in them states, not understanding the culture and the structures that they had set up and the civility that they actually had within their societies. But later discoveries and everything else kind of taught us that and passed on from hearing their perspective of the story. And why do I go into this? It's all about the Bible. You know, you recount stories of the Bible and Christians are going to claim that it's the inherent word of God. It's passed on. It's God's written word passed through man's hand, written down. But if you look at the facts and what's actually presented, most of the stuff that we read from the New Testament was written decades after the accounts of Christ. And wouldn't it not be favorable to put a positive spin on this, to assign a deity form to this gentleman so that we could lift him up as a godlike status, to say, if you don't obey this, which is going to be the law of the land here, you're disobeying God. You're going to be in eternal punishment. Knowing man and how they've treated other man throughout the history of the world, this makes absolute and perfect sense. That most of the Bible, written by many different men and many different authors and translated by even more, and translated to fit and skew into the governmental entities that needed it to favor them and lift themselves up. Kings wanted to be appointed leaders by God, and that they were the next step up to God, the Pope doing the same thing, that all these men wanted that authority trickled down and that control that they could manipulate people over, because it wasn't offending their law, it wasn't offending them, it was offending God, and that was a severe crime, so you better obey, even though it does favor me as the leader in everything that I do. So when someone comes up to you and says the Bible is the inerrant word of God and that it is his word translated directly down throughout generations, you can understand that it really is not. It's just man manipulating text and stories and assigning deity to it to manipulate and control populace all over the world. It's no more accurate of a history statement than anything else that we take from one-sided perspective. When we look at one side and then study the other side and the effects on it, we can see that there's civility on both sides. We can see that it wasn't just this barbarous people that needed, conquering because they just came at us like savages. We can see that indigenous people here had their own culture and their own structure and a beautiful way of living that was peaceful and prospered throughout this land. It was our opinions that we needed to modernize them and civilize them because they didn't meet our standards. If we keep that in perspective and take that into what the Bible's written, we can understand truly that the Bible isn't a word of God. It's man's manifestation of control and power and assigning it to God so that they can continue to live at the top of the food chain.